Hello. Hello, Pam. Hello, Erica. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Hi, Anna. Hi, Pam.
Hi.
Hello. Great, we can start. Hi, everyone. I'm Anna from GreenGeeks, and thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar. The GA4 deadline is almost here. Are you ready? And it's by our guest speaker, Pam Aungst Cronin, President of Pam Marketing. I'm going to introduce you, Pam, in a little while, but we're so happy to have you. And real quick, I want to say a couple of words about GreenGeeks for those of you who may be watching and may not be familiar with us. We're a 300% green energy web hosting provider, which essentially means we put back 3 times the amount of energy we consume into the grid in the form of renewable energy. We have been recognized by the US EPA since 2009 as a green power partner, and we offer share hosting, we offer reseller hosting, VPS, and dedicated server. Now, a couple of things about the webinar. If you have questions, can you please put them in the Q&A so Pam can answer them at the end of her presentation. You're also welcome to chat in the chat room, but remember to select everyone if you want everyone to see what you're discussing. And that, as always, as I said in the chat and I replied to a couple of people, we are recording this. So if you have to step away, don't worry. We will be emailing you a link to this recording in a few days. And then one more thing, we have enabled live transcription for the webinar. So you now have the ability to enable them during the webinar by going to live transcript and show subtitles. I'm going to introduce the team from GreenGeeks. Today we have Erica Barbosa assisting us to the chat and Q&A. Hey, welcome, Erica. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Anna. Hello, everyone. I am Erica Barbosa from Costa Rica. I work in the partners team. And today I'm going to be assisting the chat and reading your comments. Hope you enjoy today with Pam and learn a lot about Google Analytics. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Erica. I'm going to say a few words about Pam, and then I'm going to leave you the floor, Pam. So Pam is the owner of Pam Marketing, and she's very well known for her expertise in SEO, PPC analytics, and WordPress. Pam kicked off her own agency in 2011, and she's been rocking and rolling ever since, being featured in 3 books, tons of podcasts, and several major media outlets. She's also landed a spot in SERPstats top 10 women in SEO. Armed with a marketing MBA from Regis University and nearly 2 decades in the industry, she's all about helping brands level up their online marketing strategies. Well, welcome, Pam. Would you like to say hi and then start your presentation?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me and dialing in today to get ready for what this crazy deadline we have coming up. What is it, 15? Yeah, so I'm going to share my screen because we're going to do a little bit different today. We're not going to go through a pre-prepared slide deck. We're going to do a live demonstration. So yes, 15 days, 12 hours, 56 minutes, and 10 seconds to be precise, is what we have left for getting ready for this big Google Analytics 4 transition. And so, like I said, we'll be doing a live demo. My friend Beth volunteered her account for me to do this transition on. And of course, feel free to ask questions in the Q&A throughout pertaining to your account. And we'll go over those as soon as I get through the basics here. But we will also see we have a checklist where this is what we're going to go through. This checklist can be sent to everyone afterwards. I guess you put it on the when you put the recording up. I'm guessing you'll put it up there. Yep. Okay, great. So this is the basic version of the checklist we've been working off of for all of the GA4 transitions we've been doing. Of course, there's edge cases and unique things that have to be addressed in certain accounts, and we have a more detailed process we go through for that. But this is the basics. This is what everyone should go through at a minimum to make sure you're ready for this transition in 15 days. So just to back up real quick, though, what is Google Analytics 4? I'm sure we have people with a wide variety of familiarity here. So let's just start with the basics. If you are barely even know what's going on here, barely even touch your Google Analytics account, basically GA4, Google Analytics 4, is a new version of Google Analytics. Now, I kind of hate that they called it GA4 because it sounds like some kind of minor iteration upgrade from GA3, but it's really actually an entirely different product. They probably should have given it an entirely different name to let people know it's an entirely different product with an entirely different measurement protocol, basically like the inner workings of the software and how it tracks user behavior on a website is completely and totally different from the current version of Google Analytics. So basically you have to set up a brand new way of tracking your website, and very little, if anything, can be brought over from the current version of Google Analytics, which is, just to get our terminology straight, some people call it GA3 now, but it never really was called that. It was called Universal Analytics, or UA. So I guess I'll try to stay consistent and call it UA versus GA4, but know that UA is really GA3. So there's a couple of configurations you can import from UA to GA4, but you can't really, you really have to look at it as something brand new that you're setting up. You're starting fresh, as if you never had analytics before almost. And unfortunately, I mentioned that GA4 has a different measurement protocol. Basically, what does that mean? That means it counts things differently. So you can't even import your UA data into GA4 because it's apples and oranges. It's like taking a spreadsheet with like a certain number of columns, say 3 columns, and you're trying to import that data into a spreadsheet with 74 columns. Like it's just, and you can't split it apart. And yes, so as Ryan just said in the chat, it is event-based, not session-based, for those that are a little bit more familiar with how the current version works. The current version of Google Analytics, Universal Analytics, I can't even talk today. The current version of Google Analytics, aka Universal Analytics, is very hit-based and session-based, versus the new version is completely event-based. So an event used to be something we would set up in Universal Analytics to track something that wasn't tracked by default, but everything in GA4 is an event, whether it's a page view or a conversion or hitting start on a video. It's all event-based. So it really kind of is apples and oranges, and it's a different way for the more advanced people that are used to working in the inner workings of the data. It takes some getting used to. Like a page view is not just a page view anymore. A page view is an event named page view, but there's so many other events with different names. So if you're building reports, you need to, anyway, I'm jumping ahead. I said I was going to go back to the basics. So we will get to all of that, but let's get started with the basics. Okay. So if you haven't dealt with any of this yet, and you log into your current Google Analytics, aka Universal Analytics, you'll see this countdown timer, and it will prompt you to go to the Setup Assistant or up here to begin the migration. So that is the first thing you should do, which first thing on our checklist is create your GA4 property. So this will do that if you haven't done that yet. So it says, I want to create a new Google Analytics 4 property. If for some reason you started tinkering with this completely separately and somehow you created a GA4 and it's just not connected, you will have the option to connect the properties. The way you will know that is if you go up here and you look in your properties, you would only have the one you would have 2 properties if you did do that. In this case, we only have the one. We only have Universal Analytics. So we need to create a Google Analytics 4 property. So we're going to get started. So the Setup Assistant is going to create a new GA4 property for us, and it's going to copy some basic settings from the Universal Analytics property. It says you can then configure additional settings as needed. They make it sound like it's optional. You will need to configure additional settings because this does not set up everything for you. So the next thing you'll see here is if you have anything but the old ga.js tracking script on your site, you will be able to, at least for now, use your existing tracking code on your site if it's the analytics.js or gtag.js tracking code, so that the tracking code that you put on the website to make universal analytics work can just send data to GA4 in addition to sending to universal analytics. At some point, I do think they're probably going to make you upgrade to the GTAG version if you have the analytics version. But anyway, how do you even know what you have? Let's look at that. So on this site, I don't know what is here. So let's see. So the first thing you'll do is right click in any area that doesn't have an image and go to view page source. And we're going to do a search. So if you're on Mac, that's Command F, or Windows Control F. And we want to know what tracking script is here. Is it analytics.js? So let's type in analytics.js. Nope, don't see that. 0 of 0 matches. Is it gtag.js? Yes. Well, maybe. This one says it's gtag.js with an AW, which is actually for AdWords. So then that can get a little bit confusing. So the next thing you want to check for is just your universal analytics code prefix, which is UA-. And we're going to see if we can find that here. Perfect. Here it is. Okay. And this does match what we have in here. I'm not going to veer off the screen at the moment, but I did go into the universal analytics setting and make sure that we're working with the right account here. So this is the number that I saw in universal analytics, and it is using the GTAG script. So good. We are cross compatible, backwards compatible. So we can use this, even though it says UA- and not the new Google Analytics 4 ID, it will send data to Google Analytics 4. If you don't see that, or if you see like you have the really old GA.js script, if you go and GA.js and it matches, you are going to have to change the tracking code on your website. But in this case, thankfully, we don't have to. Most people hopefully won't have to, at least not yet. So back to Google Analytics. So we are going to collect our data through our existing tag. We're not going to change any tags on the website at this time. So we're going to go ahead and create the property. Awesome. Property created. It's connected. Automatically set up a basic Google Analytics 4 property is something we were urging people to opt out of earlier on in the process, but it's kind of irrelevant at this point. What it may have done for you if you didn't opt out of it is it may have already created meaning the Google system may have already created a Google Analytics 4 property for you, which you would see in the top or here. Now we have one, we didn't before, but you may see one that you didn't make, and that means it made it for you automatically. So I do have a recommendation on the checklist to opt out of the automatic creation, but that's kind of irrelevant at this point. If it's automatically created, it should have connected itself. If for any reason it didn't, it should give you an option here to connect it to. So we want to make sure you have one and make sure it's connected to your universal analytics. Okay, so we are done in the old analytics interface. We're going to go to the new GA4 interface. Now, the next thing that I have on here is implement tag manager and publish your GA4 configuration tag that way. That is ideal. However, with 15 days, 12 hours, and however many minutes and seconds we have left, we're prioritizing at this point. We're picking our battles. We're picking the most important things to deal with just for this specific deadline. At some point, I would highly recommend you implementing Tag Manager and pushing your GA4 tracking code through Tag Manager instead of putting it in your site code. Basically, the biggest reason for that, there's a lot of benefits, but the biggest reason is that GA4 is very reliant on Tag Manager if you want to do make custom events. You can do some of it in the interface, but it's very limited. What is Tag Manager real quick? Google Tag Manager, which you can get to by going to tagmanager.google.com, is a tracking code repository where basically you can put all of your tracking codes in there, your Google Analytics tracking code, but maybe your Facebook Insights code, your Hotjar code, your whatever tracking scripts you use, tracking scripts for your live chat, your call tracking, your CRM, HubSpot, and you can manage all of those tracking scripts in one place. So all that goes on the site is the Google Tag Manager tracking script, but then through that gets pushed all of your other tracking scripts. And so it's a nice way to keep it all in one place, helps with page speed a little bit, not having so many different scripts on your site. And specific to GA4, it allows a lot more flexibility in what you track and how you track it when you want to get custom with things. But anyway, like I said, we are prioritizing at this point. So we're going to hope that everybody has their existing UA tag that you can use and connect the way that I just did. And we're going to skip this step for now. You can always do another webinar on that later. So next most important thing, and I do have a little warning sign there, because this, like, don't skip this. If you skip any other step, just don't skip this one. The default data retention period in GA4 is 2 months. So if I didn't go and do this right now, 2 months from now, today's data would get deleted. You'd only ever have 2 months of data rolling, which is kind of crazy. So we're going to go to data settings, data retention, and change this from 2 months to the max, which is 14 months. That's still less than the default setting of 24 months in Universal Analytics. And Universal Analytics actually allowed you to override that and keep your data indefinitely. That is no more. And this actually kind of speaks to one of the reasons why Google created GA4. I get asked that a lot, like, why are they even doing this? All these new privacy regulations, GDPR, CCPA, et cetera, are kind of forcing Google to do this. They were collecting too much data that was PII, like IP addresses. Basically, all of Universal Analytics was based on IP addresses, and now legally they're really not supposed to be doing things that way. So for and data retention, keeping data too long is addressed in a lot of these new privacy laws. So that's kind of why they had to do this and had to rein in the limits on things. But they really went nuts, and I think pulling it down to a default of 2 months, like all these unsuspecting people that are just clicking the button saying, set up, yeah, go ahead, Google, set up GA4 for me. Okay, fine, I'm done. They are not going to realize that in 2 months, their data is going to be gone. So like I said, if you do nothing else, make sure you do this and make sure to hit save, because I didn't do that yet. It's a little bit hard to tell that it worked, but if you watch on the bottom, it says that it was updated. So do not pass go, do not collect $200. Do not forget to change your data retention period. Okay, so next up, so we've done that. Now we're going to go through. I always like to hit save again just to make sure. I have anxiety over this. Yeah, I made sure I hit save. Okay, so next thing, we're going to go to the GA4 Setup Assistant and complete our checklist here. Okay, so we are connected, and it's giving us a checklist to go through. Now you would think that since it seems to know the status of things, that it would automatically check something off for you if it's done, but it doesn't. So you have to manually mark each one of these as done. So although the data didn't quite start coming in yet, I'm confident it will. So I'm going to mark this as complete. What I would recommend for most people is actually double check and make sure your connected tag is collecting data for you before you check it as complete. But for demonstration purposes, we're going to keep going. I'm going to mark that as complete. Next up, they have turn on Google Signals. The thing to keep doing on all of these is to compare what you had in Universal Analytics to what you want to have in GA4. So if you hover, it will tell you, were you utilizing this feature in, oops, sorry, stop moving, hover, there we go. Were you using this in Universal or not? In this case, no, so we don't need to bring it in. the whole discussion about what Google Signals is, and it has to do with data collection, ads personalization, privacy policies and whatnot. We don't have time for that today. Hopefully it'll be nice and simple for most of you. You'll see that you weren't using it before. It means you don't need it now, and you can mark it complete. So next up, we have setting up conversions. I'm actually going to go out of order because that's one that's a little bit more in depth. So we're going to keep going and just get the simple stuff out of the way for now. Audiences. So same thing here. You can hover and see what you were using in Universal Analytics to see what you need to use in Google Analytics 4. In this case, there were no audiences in Universal Analytics. Google Analytics 4 sets up some default ones. And by the way, what's an audience? An audience is like kind of groups of users that you create with certain criteria. So for example, users that have visited my site in the last 30 days and did not complete a conversion action. That might be an audience you would want to create so that you can import it into Google Ads and run remarketing ads off of that. But this was not in use here, so we don't need to worry about it. The defaults that GA4 set up for us are just fine for now. Again, going to mark as complete. Some of these will give you an option for importing from Google Analytics, but for the most part, it's really just going to give you instructions on how to manually import things, which you might as well just recreate them. It's, I think, probably easier to recreate them if you need to in GA4. So anyway, we're going to mark as complete. Linking to Google Ads, if you do have a Google Ads account, this is something that's highly recommended. Even if you're not using it at the moment, you may decide to use it someday. It's nice to have it all connected and ready to work. So, so it does, let's see, if I hover, it does say that we had one Google Ads link in Universal Analytics. So we need to make sure we recreate that here. So we're going to manage Google Ads links. No links yet. We're going to link to create one. Now, I don't recall if I still have access to her ads account or not. And yeah, I don't want to go through all this right now. So let's pretend I found it and I hit next and basically hit save, and that's it to connect it. If you don't, if for some reason you're working on this for clients and you don't have access to their Google Ads, you won't be able to complete this step. You'll have to advise your client to complete this step. But okay, so we're going to pretend that we did, actually, no, I don't want to forget to go back and do this later. So I'm not going to pretend that I did that one. I'm not going to mark that one complete. Similarly, bit on GA4 conversions. The number one way I recommend setting up conversion tracking in Google Ads is to actually set it up in Google Analytics and just import it into Google Ads. And so we're going to want to do that at some point too, but we skipped over even setting up the conversions for now. So we'll get back to that. And similarly, target ads to GA4 audiences. We do want to import the audiences to Google Ads. Don't have the ability to do that at this moment, so I won't mark that complete. But that is another thing you want to make sure to do if you have Google Ads. If you don't have Google Ads, just mark them all complete. Same thing with these advanced setups. Most of these aren't going to be applicable to the average Google Analytics account. So if none of it looks familiar to you, you've never dealt with any of this in the past, these four here can all just be checked off your list. And then the one you will want to double check is that all of the users that had access to Universal Analytics also have access to your Google Analytics 4 property. In this case, you know, again, if you're an agency or a consultant working on this for your clients, you may not have the high level access at the Universal Analytics level to manage users because you were just added as a user. So that's something, again, you'll have to point to your client to make sure that they ensure that. So I'll leave that open for now. And so we got through the simple stuff. And let's see, where are we on the checklist? So we went through the checklist as best we can. Like I said, we can skip the opt-out. Then there's some kind of more advanced things that I recommend doing. For the sake of time, though, and again, prioritization, we're going to jump to events and conversions. Because since, like we said, everything in GA4 is event-based, in order to create a conversion, first you have to create an event for the action that you want to track as a conversion. And this is really important. So let's do this now. So we're going to go to, well, it takes you to manage conversions, which is kind of silly because like I just said, if you want to track something as a conversion, you first need to make sure it's tracked as an event. So really where we need to go is events. And we don't have any custom events made yet here. That's okay if what you want to track as a conversion is tracked as an event by default. Once the data starts coming in here, you will see some of the default events, but you also can just simply Google them, GA4 default events, and you'll get a list of automatically collected events. And so here's what it will, and it does say based on the property. So most of you, I'm guessing, are going to be dealing with web properties, not mobile app properties. So we're going to kind of skip over the mobile app ones and see what do we get on web. You get click as a default event. However, this is actually just clicks that lead a user away from the current domain. But let's say you have, like, I don't know, an Etsy shop or something. And if somebody clicks on your button that takes them from your regular website to your Etsy shop, and you want to consider that a successful conversion, you can probably just use the default click event that is included by default. You don't have to make one. You would have to put some parameters on it to say, like, I only want to count this click as a conversion when the link domain that the click went to is Etsy.com. So let's pretend that that's the case. We want to use a default event, but narrow it down to specific actions of that nature. And we want to create a conversion off of that. Actually, you know what? In this case, this is the perfect thing, because the request to quote, which is really what we want to track in this case, does go, I just remember this does go to an external event, external website, customerlobby.com. So this is what we want. We want clicks that go outbound, leave her site and go to customerlobby.com. We want to mark that as a conversion. So let's do it. So we're going to create an event. Now, I know I said it's a default event, but we're creating a specific, well, it'll make more sense when I do it here. So let's do it. So create, we're going to say, so it's a click that we're working off of, but we're going to say click to customer lobby. So we don't want to track all the outbound clicks. We want to track the clicks where that was the link domain. So event name, we are going to use the default event as a, oh, and I meant to say too, the naming convention for events in GA4 is lowercase with underscores as spaces. And I do recommend sticking with that. If you start to do, you can do it however you want, capital letters, spaces, whatever, but it starts to look a bit messy when you get into your reports and certain events look one way and certain events look another way. Also, I could have done this as customer lobby click, but I want to be able to sort my reports by all the different types of clicks. And so I want click in the front so that I can keep those together in my reports. So that's why I did that way. Okay, so the conditions that we want this event to fire on is, fire is the terminology, I don't even know where that came from, but when, like a trigger, you want it to fire when this happens. So we want it to fire when event name equals click, meaning a click off the site, and the link domain not equals, contains. Oops, I didn't do that. Customerlobby.com. So this is going to, like I said, track when an outbound click goes to the link domain, customerlobby.com. Now in GA4, you'll see a lot about parameters. Parameters are kind of like drill down details of an event. So the event click has parameters. This is best explained here. So the event click has a wide variety of parameters, starting with event name. The event name is click. But there's also these kind of more drill down details. So every time there's a click, there's also these parameters that you can drill down into to find out more about that click. in this case, we can see the link classes, the CSS classes that were on the link that was clicked, the link domain, the link ID, the URL, and whether or not it's an outbound link, which is kind of silly. That's a true false thing, and it only tracks when it's outbound. Internal click tracking, if you want to track clicks on certain buttons that keep someone on your site, that is an example of something you would have to configure in Google Tag Manager, which is why I do recommend getting that set up at some point. But for now, we're working with outbound clicks, and I just wanted to pause and explain what parameters are. So the event that we're using is a click, but the parameters, the details of that event are that the event name is click, and the link domain that the click pointed to is customerlobby.com. I didn't want to use link URL and use the specific full URL because I'm not entirely sure if she has any other buttons somewhere else on the site that also go to customer lobby but go to a different endpoint. So that's why I picked link domain. Should cover all bases. Okay, time flies when you're having fun, so I'm going to keep moving. I want to make sure we do leave time for questions. So I created this event, click to customer lobby. Now here's one of the, I'm going to copy this because here's one of the big mistakes people make is a lot of people think that now that you've created an event that you want to now go mark as a conversion, that you have to wait 24 hours for it to show up here so that you can toggle the mark as conversion button to, yes, I want to mark it as a conversion. You don't need to do that. You can just say new conversion event and paste the name of the event that you made and save, and that will bring it up there. It's a little bit confusing because I think even some of the Google Analytics 4 instructions say that, wait till the event shows up here and then mark it as a conversion, which means you have to come back at least 24 hours later. Remember to come back at least 24 hours later and find it and mark it. It's just unnecessary. Just new conversion event, paste it, and you're done. So in this case, I do believe that's the main conversion event that we want to track on this site. We can always add more later, but we have at least the most important action tracked. So we're going to go back to our setup assistant and say that we completed internal error. I've been getting that once in a while. GA4 is still a little bit buggy. I really don't think it's ready to go to market, but like I said, for legal purposes, they're pushing it to market now anyway. Okay, so we're going to mark as complete. Oh, and this, I should mention too, this one custom conversion, one default conversion. The default conversion that you saw before purchase is in there all the time, even if you don't have an e-commerce site that you will never need. If you don't have an e-commerce site, you will never need purchase as an event, but it stays in there by default and you can't get rid of it. And it's super annoying. I hope someday they add an option to get rid of it, but it is what it is right now. So we're going to say that we completed that. Okay, so we were here. We succeeded at getting that done. Now, of course, we want to test the events and conversions. That's another thing that's a benefit of Tag Manager is the preview mode in Tag Manager makes testing your event setup and your conversion setup super easy. But if you don't have that yet, you can use the debug view or just simply perform the action yourself and make sure it shows up in the real-time events. The debug view is here, and it requires you put a certain parameter on the URL when you're testing to get it to work. Again, it's easier through Tag Manager. But to keep it simple for now, let's just go to the real-time reports. And, I may have set this up a little too soon. Let's see if it works. I do also always make sure to do testing in incognito because, for example, if you have a WordPress site and you're logged into your WordPress site and you're using an analytics plugin to deploy your analytics code, it will not track you if you're logged in. So that's why you want to always go to incognito. All right, so I'm going to perform the action and we're going to try to make sure that it showed up here, although we are not getting data yet. It does take some time, but I don't know, we're probably about at least 15 minutes into the process here. So the fact that we're not seeing data here yet. Oh, wait, there it is. It just wasn't in the summary. Okay, it is here. So we have some events that have occurred in the past 30 minutes that we're seeing in the real-time view here. We have some first visits, some page views, or 2 page views, both of which were first visits, and therefore session starts. I don't see my click just yet, but that's not unusual. It can take a few moments. I also don't see my event just yet, but like I said, it can take a few moments. And so we'll give it another moment here, but for the sake of time, we may have to just pretend that we did see it show up here. And by it, I mean the event name you will see is the one that we gave it, which was click to customer lobby. And you should also then see it come up here under conversions. I'll give it a quick refresh to see if that speeds it along. But not just yet. Okay. Now, I will check back on this later. If it doesn't show up at all, then something is wrong and needs to be troubleshooted. But yeah, I'm going to assume it's just lagging like it usually is. Real time is a bit misleading with GA4. It's not super real time. I would assume in a couple of minutes it will show up. But again, this is, it's a very real possibility that maybe something is wrong with the tracking code or your event setup, the way you did it, and maybe it's truly not working. So I'm going to keep moving on for the sake of time, but in reality, really do want to make sure you see your events successfully show up there and your conversions successfully show up here. Okay, so let's see, marketing audiences. So we did actually talk about audiences in when we went over the checklist, but it is something I called out separately here because it's very important to, if remarketing is something you want to do, even if you haven't been doing it. I said before, if you had the audiences already, you need to recreate them. But even if you haven't, you want to consider, if you do want to do remarketing in the future, you want to set up the audiences now because they take time to build. Audiences typically have a 30-day window. So it's when I said the example of users who visited my site but didn't complete a conversion action within the last 30 days, you need 30 days for that audience to build so that you can use it in ads. So it is something to consider at this point. But again, with this much time left down to the deadline, we're prioritizing. So we did talk about connecting to Google Ads. I do recommend also connecting to Search Console. I am going to breeze over this a little bit too, because for the sake of priority, if you're running out of time, it's not something you want to make sure to spend time on right now, but it is recommended to eventually link your Search Console account to analytics so that you get more information about what's going on with your organic SEO inside of analytics, but we'll breeze over it for now. And then importing conversions and audiences into Google Ads, I touched upon that as well, but it is certainly, if you're using Google Ads, it's something you don't want to forget. It's easy to go through the checklist and say like, yeah, we set this all up. We made sure that we have our link to Google Ads done and our conversions that we're going to import into Google Ads are created and our audiences that we're going to import into Google Ads are created, but you got to remember to go import them. So that's why I called that out separately. Make sure to go into Google Ads and import your conversions and import your audiences. Then I have last, other than following me on social, of course, is setting up Looker Studio for reporting. That is an entirely separate webinar as well, but I just want to plant the seed in your mind at this point to start thinking about it. Obviously, you need to make sure you have your basic setup covered as we just went through. But start to think about learning Looker Studio. Looker Studio is a free tool by Google that does reporting, but in a very visual way. You can make really pretty pie charts with your Google Analytics data and bar charts and line charts, and it's super customizable. You can make data dashboards however you want. Some of you may have made custom reports and dashboards in Google Analytics in the past, and I think you'll be highly unpleasantly surprised at what reporting is like in GA4, specifically building custom reports. I mean, they give you all these kind of weird reports. Some of them are kind of equivalent to the ones we used a lot in Universal Analytics. Like we used to go to acquisition, all traffic and channels to see just the general buckets of where your traffic is coming from. You can go to acquisition and traffic acquisition and see, well, it's not showing up now here, but because the data is not coming in just yet, but in full, but it will say like direct versus organic search versus referral traffic, etc. You can see some of that basic stuff, but the ability to customize this is severely lacking. So what they tell you to do, they being Google, tells you to do to create your own custom reports is to create an exploration, which is an exercise that will leave you pulling your hair out. I mean, it is, I've gotten used to it at this point because I've had to, but it's really silly. Let me give an example here. So let's say we want to build a report that shows, let's say I'll use the example that I just had before, the default channel groupings, and we want to make it slightly different than what the default is. Instead of just being able to add that as a row, first you have to import it as a dimension, and then you can add it as a row on your report. Then you have to import the metrics that you want. So let's say, views. I'm not used to calling it views yet instead of page views. Page views is now called views. So we want to see views by that. Again, we have to import it as a metric first. And you got to be able to remember what's a dimension and what's a metric. The short version is the metrics are the numbers and the dimensions are the things you want to slice and dice the numbers by, like views, and we want to slice and dice it by channel grouping. But you got to import it first and then add it as, what do we want? We don't want it as a row or a column. We want it as a value. And then it would show up here saying the number of views broken down by direct, organic, referral, et cetera, if we had the data. But I mean, that is just don't waste time learning how to do this. Looker Studio is so much better. I promise you. Connect your GA4 data to Looker Studio, create your reports in there. Looker Studio, I'm not going to lie to you, it takes some getting used to also. But if you're going to go through this, no, just go through that, learn that, and you'll be much, much happier in the long run. So that's basically it. That's a basic setup. I had to breeze over certain things. I do have some more advanced things in here that I do recommend. But again, we are down to the wire now, so we have to prioritize. Make sure you go through everything we went through just now at the minimum. Then maybe go back and check out some of those other things that I have on the checklist. And then check out Looker Studio. And you'll be good to go. But that's the basics. And we can take the rest of the time now and go over questions.
Yes, I can read them to you if you wish, make it easier. Laura is asking if you can share how to opt out of the upgrade if preferred.
Oh, so the one thing that you could opt out of in the past, I'm not sure they're even letting you do that anymore, is the automatic creation of the GA4 property. So you would actually go into your Universal Analytics property and go to the GA4 Setup Assistant. I think this is all set to opt out by default now. But what you're opting out of is the automatic creation of a GA4 property. There is no way to opt out of being forced to use GA4 in the future. Right. Unfortunately, they are shutting down Universal Analytics as of July 1st. No more data will come in there, no matter how you leave your tracking, how long you leave your tracking script there. It doesn't matter. July 1st, it dies. It will stay live for at least 6 months, they've promised us, so that you can go to Universal Analytics and export your data to like Excel or whatever, however you want to keep it. Unfortunately, it's going to be a very, very manual process. I do recommend doing that because you can then connect Google Sheets to Looker Studio to do year-over-year comparisons as we go forward, but that's a bit more advanced at this point. Anyway, the short answer is, unfortunately, you can't opt out of being forced to use GA4 in the future. Universal Analytics is just going away.
Yeah. Mike is asking about this checklist. Yes, we will make this available, right? Pam, we will send it out.
Yes, yes, of course. I thought you might want to add it to, I guess, the page when the recording goes out where they can watch the recording or whatever is easiest. We'll definitely get this to you. You can also just screenshot it now if you want to make sure to have it right away.
Yes, we'll make sure everybody gets it. Mike is asking if we use the Google Kit site the Google Sitekit plugin, it prompts for conversion to GA4. Does the plugin perform some of these basic wizard assistant tasks?
Great question. For those that use the Google Sitekit plugin, no, I'm fairly certain. I don't use it a lot. I do recommend Tag Manager, and you know, I mean, I guess it's fine for pulling data into your WordPress site so that you can see some basic stats from there. That's fine. It's really not a configuration tool, meant to be a configuration tool though, although it can, I guess it can inject the basic tracking code onto your WordPress site for you. It's really limited to that. No, it is not going to do any of this for you.
Okay. We now have Jeanette. If you don't get that pop-up message with a countdown, does that mean it's already converted?
Great question. Not necessarily. I guess there could be some reasons why the pop-up message wouldn't show up, but you would still, if you're really not set up with the most basic things, you'll still see this red bar across the top prompting you to complete your GA4 setup. If you are good to go, I'll just pull up mine real quick. You'll see it turns blue. You know what? This is funny. I have had an issue only on my account, thankfully, not any of the clients' accounts. It will not let me connect. I'm going to try it again now. It will not let me connect my UA to GA4. There was that message on the bottom that said internal error. So let me see if there's another one here that I can get a blue message from. No, that's an old one we don't use. Anyway, it will turn blue and tell you that you may want to do some more configurations or something like that. But yeah, if you don't get the countdown, but you see red, you're still not ready.
Okay, thank you. Also, this is Laura. I believe you answered this question earlier, that you cannot opt out. She's asking, will you share how to opt out of the upgraded preferred? But I believe you already answered this question. You cannot opt out of GA4, correct?
Correct. Yeah, unfortunately, you can't opt out like completely.
Okay. Mike is asking about a webinar tag manager. I'll put that on the list for next time.
Absolutely. Coming soon.
Coming soon. John is saying, related to event data retention, what is the checkbox for reset user data on new activity? Turn this option on to reset the retention period of the user identifier with each new event from that user, thus setting the expiration date to current time plus retention period. Does that specifically increase the amount / period of user-specific data? Very technical question, John.
Yeah, and honestly, I have read this so many times and I still think myself in circles about it because it's really not super clear. Reset the retention period of the user identifier with each new event, thus setting the expiration date to current time plus retention period. Yeah, I mean, basically the way I think that I understand this is if a user comes to your site today, what's today, June 15th, normally, if you have the default of let's just use 2 months because it's easier, as of August 15th, that user's data would go away from your reports. But if that user came again on July 1st, and Google Analytics sees it's the same user, it will give them another 2 months on top of that, plus what it had before, I think. Yeah, to be honest, that is a really confusing one that I hope to understand more about as we move forward in our GA4 journey here.
We're all learning as we go along.
Yes, I'll admit it. I'm still learning it. I've learned a lot about it thus far, but I have not by any means learned every little thing about it yet.
We have another question here from Carrie. Why not migrate the ad data from UA when you were in link to Google Ads? That was at the beginning of the presentation, I guess.
I think what that might be referring to is the fact that I kind of breezed over that because it did dig through all of our clients' Google Ads accounts on the screen to find hers. You should complete that. There's no reason not to. Yes.
George is asking, is there any way to make GA4 look like how GA looked like in the mobile app, as As in, we can see how many people online, how many sessions, how many users, and how many events.
So I think I understand the question, but let me go to my old one here. So I think, actually, I'm not sure. I mean, if you're talking about kind of recreating like dashboards and widgets that look almost the same as they did here in Universal Analytics, I mean, kind of, but not really. Oh, there's the blue that I was talking about before. Now it gave it to me. So that means you're probably good to go, but you still want to double check all your little configurations. So yeah, I mean, it's not, there's some ability to customize these things, but honestly, I struggle to even try to do it because it's like somewhere in here at one point in time, I found an edit option to edit some of these widgets, but for the most part, it doesn't really let you change them very much. So not really, I guess. If I understand the question correctly, can you kind of like modify this to make it look really similar to what you're used to seeing in Universal Analytics? The answer would be not really, or no. Really. And that is why I recommend Looker Studio. That's where you can really recreate what kind of, not like the interface, but recreate the widgets that you're used to seeing, the data points that you're used to seeing without everything else in the way.
Makes sense. We have another question here from Terry. In order to tell when people are leaving your website to go to any of your social platform, we'd need to set one of these up for each platform. Is that correct?
Interesting question. Yes and no, depends. I mean, if you want to record an exit from your site to a social platform as a conversion, and you want to know, how, like, you want to set it up separately, like Facebook conversions, Twitter conversions, etc. I mean, I'm just using this as an example. Usually I wouldn't recommend tracking that as a conversion. Usually I recommend conversion actions as something more likely to lead to a sale or whatever, a lead. But anyway, to just simply see that data, no, you don't have to set up a custom event. If you want to record conversions like only for Facebook visits out to Facebook and you want to create that as a conversion, then yes, you have to create a custom event for that. But let me see if I can demonstrate to make clear what I'm saying. Again, in order to do a custom report, I'm going to have to use this crazy exploration thing, but I'll do it in my account so you can actually see data this time. So if I want to know how many people are going out to, so I want event name, I will set that to click, and I want to know where they're going to. So that would be, oh my gosh, see, that's another thing. They don't actually let you access parameters yet in their reporting. If you add them as custom dimensions, you can import them into Looker Studio. And I know I'm probably sounding like I'm speaking Greek right now, but the point is, in some places you can see that data, but you cannot build custom reports easily with it. Let me try one more time, see if I can show it. Okay, click. So, or click outbound. I renamed mine to click outbound, so I can remember that a click is an outbound click. So you can drill into any event and find the data. So there we go. I have one person in whatever time period I'm looking at here, clicked from my website to my Instagram. So you can get that data there. If I made a bigger time period, you'd see probably the other ones too. But can you build a custom report with that in GA4? No. If you want to only use GA4, I guess you could create a custom event so that you could create a custom report, which, no, again, it all comes back around to Looker Studio, because with one additional configuration step, you can get all of these parameters, which, just as a reminder, a parameter is like drill down detail of an event. So yeah, you had an outbound click, but where did they go to? The link domain is a parameter to tell you where they went to. Parameters are kind of awesome in a way, actually. It's one of the few things about GA4 I like, that you can drill into an event for more details about the event, but They don't even let you use them in their explorations, which is their custom reporting. And by default, you can't use them in Looker Studio, but it's real easy to be able to use them in Looker Studio. I'll show you that real quick. All you have to do in order to use a parameter, something listed in their documentation as a parameter in your Looker Studio reporting, is to add it as a custom dimension. And you'll see I added some here that I've used in my reporting already. And I don't know why I'm not seeing the button to create a custom dimension. Oh, I'm in my other account and I didn't give myself access in this account. Anyway, most of you in your own accounts will see a button to create a new custom definition. All you have to do is put the name of the parameter you want in as a custom definition, hit save. Then when you connect your GA4 data to Looker Studio, that will be available for reporting. I went way too long on that answer, but this is how convoluted GA4 is with trying to figure out how to get to where you want to be. Hopefully that was helpful.
Thank you. Deborah is asking, do all of these tasks need to be marked complete in order for GA4 to function properly?
Good question. No. It's just a nice kind of visual reminder that, you did or did not complete everything you wanted to complete.
Thank you. Bethany is saying universal data seem to take 24 hours. You mentioned real-time reports. So is this really real-time?
So Universal Analytics actually did have a version of real-time reports. If you go here, here, they did have some data that would show in real time. It was limited. I mean, it's kind of the same thing in GA4 real-time reporting. It's not super real time. There might have been an issue in what we tried to do before. Let me try to do another one now real quick and see how much it lags. When I say it's not really real time, it's like, it just lags like a little bit. So let's see, let me click on my TikTok here and then we'll see about, so there was already one outbound click. I know that wasn't me because that was there already. And that one was to Instagram. So let's see, do we in a moment get another outbound click to show up? Really should. But okay, so this is what I mean by it's not real time. But probably any second now we'll get this to turn to 2. There it goes. And you'll see my click to TikTok. So it's real time-ish, but it should be within 30 seconds to a minute. If you don't, like what happened before when we didn't see it after 30 seconds to a minute, there's an issue there that I need to drill down into later. You should see real time within 30 seconds to a minute.
Makes sense. Moving on, we have a question from Stephen that you may have, it says, you may have answered it at the top of the pink banner. It says this property is not fully set up and directs you to complete in Setup Assistant. I have created the GA4 properties and keep getting this message and cannot figure out what I'm supposed to do to complete the setup. Okay.
It might just want you. I've seen this happen a lot. Sometimes it's a glitch, like in my case, where I have completed the setup and see, now it's not going away. But you saw when I went to it before, it said it wouldn't let me connect it and it said internal error. Sometimes it's just an error. Other times though, I think it just wants you to maybe you didn't manually, I went to the wrong place. I want to go to GA4, Setup Assistant. Maybe it's just looking for you to manually check these all off. And there are some like hidden down in here too. Maybe if you check them all off, it might go away or not, because I've seen glitches with that too.
It's not perfect yet.
It's definitely not perfect. Definitely not.
Della is asking if it's possible to see which parts of your site are getting page views anymore with this new GA4.
Which parts of your site? Oh, I think I understand. So under reports, you do have some basic reports similar to Universal Analytics. Like I showed before, the traffic acquisition report will break things down. Or I didn't show this with data before. We didn't have data in the other one. So I'll show you with data now. The traffic acquisition report, it's equivalent to what one of my favorites was in Universal Analytics, which was the acquisition, all traffic channels. You can go to acquisition, traffic acquisition, and get the same data. It's actually broken down a little bit more. I like this. This, again, one of the few things I like about GA4. They do, instead of just giving you organic search, they give you organic search, organic social versus paid social, and organic video. So that you'll see more here, but that's a similar report. As far as which pages, that would be under engagement. So the equivalent in Universal Analytics would be when you go to site content, all pages, you can go here to engagement and then pages and screens, or landing pages, and it gives you views by page here. I just spotted one that's a quick, easy one to answer. What is the difference between link URL and link domain? The link URL is the full URL. So like we were looking at before with the customer lobby, that would be customerlobby.com/reviews/25103, blah, 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 blah. The link domain is just the domain part.
Okay. So we have a question here from Stephen. Says it's a personal question. He's a one-person business owner with minimal knowledge. So this is a little bit overwhelming. So he said, is expected to learn all of this and maintain on an ongoing basis, or hire an expert? What do you recommend?
Yeah, so if a lot of this sounds like Greek to you, but you know at a high level, it's important to your small business to know what's going on your website so that you can know what's working, what's not working, and continue to do more what's working, less of what's not working. I think that it's you don't necessarily need to work with an analytics expert on an ongoing basis, although of course that's an option. It's probably, I'd say probably the best thing is maybe work with an analytics expert for a short project to make sure that all the data you need collected is being collected, and to build you a Looker Studio dashboard that you can then refer to going forward and is super easy for you to understand without needing the interpretation of an analytics export. I am trying to pull up on my screen if I can find it real quick. I have, Looker Studio screenshots that I want to share. Oh, I'll just do quick this. I know we're running short on time.
Yeah, a little bit.
Real quick, let's see if I can find it. This one. Yes, okay. So when I'm saying Looker Studio, this is what I'm talking about. It is a data dashboard building tool that you can connect to Google Analytics and or a lot of other things too, Google Ads, Facebook Ads, basically anything that has an API that can spit data out. You can import it into Looker Studio and build nice, pretty, pie charts and maps and whatnot. So it's really easy for you to understand, and it updates itself in real time. So basically in your situation, I'd say, maybe work with someone to make sure you got all the data you need and that they build you a nice, simple dashboard, even just a one-pager that you can then pull up at any time and you yourself can understand on your own at any time.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Okay, Marcia is asking if we're going to be emailing the checklist. I think we already answered that. We will. Pascal said, it has been said that can we merge the data prior of GA4 in the new view at GA4 so we don't see any disruption? I believe you covered some of this at the beginning.
Yeah, unfortunately, no, you cannot import GA3 data into GA4, but you can export your GA3 data to like CSV, put that in Google Sheets, and then connect that to Looker Studio. I mean, for now, you can actually connect Universal Analytics to Looker Studio while Universal Analytics is still live with your old data, but it's going to go away. So ideally export it to CSV, put that in a Google Sheet, and then you can connect that to Looker Studio. And what we've been able to do, I know this is really small. Let me see if I can zoom in and get to one of our screenshots here. So this, in our reporting, we have year over year bar charts showing this year versus last year. And so the last year isn't going to be there in GA4. So we have exported our clients' data, the most crucial parts of it, obviously not all of it, but the most crucial parts of the data we've exported and put in a Google Sheet, connected the Google Sheet to Looker Studio, and then did a data blend. It's one of the more advanced features of Looker Studio. So what you could do is just keep like one box here and one box here that says last year and this year. We've done some blends where we actually blend it into the same chart so that the light blue from last year is the GA3 data from Google Sheets, and the dark blue from this year is the live data from GA4.
Okay. Stephen here is asking if there are any alternatives to using Google altogether, or is Google required to maintain a high SEO score?
That's an excellent question. Yes, there are alternatives, and no, you don't have to use Google. They say that the use of Google Analytics doesn't provide any SEO benefit to your site. Of course, there's conspiracy theories about that, but their official position is that no, it does not give you any benefit to use their analytics product, with regard to showing up in their search engine. And there are plenty of other alternatives. I have been so consumed with the migration work of just getting people from GA3 to GA4. I haven't explored some of the alternatives that are out there, but I know that it's a good time to evaluate your alternatives for analytics.
Great. Quentin is saying, I guess in reference to the Google Sitekit, there was a question before. If this been installed already, what's the best way to get rid of it and use the proper analytics?
Okay, so that kind of goes back to the item on the checklist where I was saying, eventually you do want to use Google Tag Manager to deploy all of your tracking codes. So the way to kind of transition to that would be, if you have a WordPress site, you can install the Google Tag Manager plugin. There's a couple, but let me get you the one that I recommend. It is this one, GTM4WP by Thomas Geiger. You can set up your Tag Manager account at tagmanager.google.com. And it will give you a container ID. When you create the account, you'll also see it up here. And that plugin will allow you to just put that container ID into the plugin, and that will push the Google Tag Manager script out to your site. You can then remove any other analytics. Well, actually, I skipped a very important step. After you, oops, I closed it. After you deploy your GA4 tracking code through Tag Manager, put your G dash whatever your number is in here, and you tell it to fire on all pages, and then you save that and publish that in your Tag Manager container. Then your Tag Manager will be deploying your GA4 tracking code for you, and you can remove Sitekit or whatever other Monster Insights, whatever, not that there's anything wrong with Monster Insights, but just as an example of other analytics plugins, you can remove them from your site. You do want to test that first, though. And like I said before, the preview mode in Tag Manager is awesome for testing. It opens up your website and lets you click around your website. And then in this other tab, it records. Let me do the same thing I did before with like the TikTok click. In the other tab, it's recording the behavior that Tag Manager sees and that Google Analytics sees, so you can see exactly what's being sent. So there's a real quick, super fast tour of Tag Manager.
Very fast. We have a question from Amans. Any plugin suggestion for WordPress to set the GA4 code and viewing the page views data? Like I'm using Beehive.
Okay, I'm not familiar with Beehive. I do, like I just said, recommend using Tag Manager, the Tag Manager plugin instead of an analytics plugin. But I do recognize that there is the benefit of when you use an analytics plugin, then you get some dashboards made for you inside of your WordPress dashboard, which is cool. I haven't had enough time to check out what all of the most popular analytics plugins are doing with GA4, but I assume the usual tried and true ones like Monster Insights are, and if you like Beehive, I assume they're going to transition to be able to be connected to GA4 and give you those same, dashboards inside of WordPress for GA4.
Great. Deborah is asking, I used the behavior flow from UA. Is there a flow diagram of where each user goes in GA4?
Kind of. Let me get back to, where do I have GA4 open? Okay, so they have this thing. I got to remember where to find it. They have a thing where you can look at like a sample user journey. Oh, I think it's in debug view. No, I forget where it is, but there is a thing that you can find somewhere in here that shows you like a sample of it. It picks a random user and you see exactly like that user's journey. It's not exactly the equivalent to the behavior flow. What they want you to do to create a report similar to behavior flow is to go into the exploration section and create a path exploration. I mean, I guess by default, that's kind of similar to the behavior flow report. I haven't played with it too much to see if it needs any customization to be truly equivalent, but this right here would be the next closest thing, would be the path exploration.
Path exploration. Okay. The next question, we have a few more, and then we have to let everybody go. Maybe this is too specific, but I want to track from start. But Google says that in order to use this, you can only use the parameters in your reports if you create custom dimensions for them. What does that mean?
Okay, so it's similar to what I showed before with the link domain. You can't, or all parameters. Form start is an example, link domain is an example. Any parameter, which is like a more specific aspect of an event, needs to be added as a custom dimension if you want to use it in either custom GA4 reports or Looker Studio. And so basically it's as simple as going to custom definitions and then create a custom dimension. So if I wanted to use form start in my reports, whether that be a GA4 custom exploration or Looker Studio, I would go in here, I would type form start, and then put that there and save. Now I can use that in my explorations. I go to explore. I should, in theory, form underscore start. And it doesn't give it to me right away. I might have to refresh, or I might have to wait. This might be one of those things where you have to wait 24 hours. I'm not sure. There it is. No, you just have to refresh. Oh, but I think it won't show you any data prior to the point where you add it to a custom, add it as a custom dimension. The event count. Values. Oh, no, it does. Okay. In Looker Studio, it would only show you the events forward from the point in time where you created it as a custom dimension. But in the custom reports, the AKA explorations in GA4, apparently it will show it to you historically, not just from that point forward, but you do have to add it as a custom dimension first before you can use it here.
Okay, great. Terry is asking, she's not sure if you already talked about this. On my account, I'm seeing this message at the top of the page. Some settings from your original Universal Analytics UA property may be automatically added to this Google Analytics 4 property. To opt out from adding these settings automatically, go to the Setup Assistant in the connected UA property. Do I want to opt out or leave this?
At this point, it might be a little too late. I think that Google has probably already done the automatic adding of the configurations that that message is referring to. Either way, I mean, opting out or not at this point, it's either happened already or it hasn't. If they were going to do it to your account, they did it to your account by now. Either way, you want to go through the checklist that we went through today and make sure manually yourself that you have checked all of your configurations. I wouldn't say that it's safe to rely on any of their automatic configurations.
Great, that's a good point. Okay, Carrie, asking about the Google Tag Manager webinar. We are going to put it on the list. Vanessa, do we need to be doing anything different and or specific with GA4 to address GPDR and California requirements, etc.?
Excellent question. Unfortunately, I don't have a super clear answer because, as I always give the disclaimer, I'm not an attorney. I just understand that, you know, it is incredibly important to have a privacy policy and to be super clear in your privacy policy, what type of data you're collecting, what you're doing with it, who you're sharing it with, specifying your GDPR procedures and whatnot. That's about the limit of my understanding. I refer to the attorneys for everything else on that, but it's entirely possible that you might need to be doing something different. That reminds me, I should ask my attorney if I need to update my privacy policy with regard to GA4. I would guess probably, but yeah, that's how, those are my thoughts.
Probably. I think we're kind of running out of time. So, so Pam, if someone had a question that wasn't answered, where can they reach you? Can they reach out to you after this?
Absolutely. So you can email me. Let me get my screen up here. Oh, I didn't put my email on here. But anyway, you can go to pamandmarketing.com and find me on any of our socials there, or use the contact form. You can also email me at pam@pamandmarketing.com and I'll help you out as best I can.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate
Sorry
your
for
time.
making your head explode, Terry.
It's okay.
I always promise to overwhelm.
Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for attending.
Thank you everyone for attending, and keep looking at our webinars. You will see them at greengeeks.com/webinars, and you will get them by email. Thank you, Pam, for this presentation, and thank you, Erica, for your help. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
for
you,
having
See you
Anna.
soon. We'll see you
See you on the
soon.
next
Thank you,
one.
everyone. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.